When the Generate Operation Plan command is selected, CAMWorks applies a set of knowledge-based rules for each feature that will automatically create machining operations. These rules are based on geometric and non-geometric properties of the feature. For example, when I run the Extract Machinable Features tool, CAMWorks recognizes a rectangular pocket feature. When I right-click on it and look at the feature parameters, you'll see that it has a strategy of rough finish, and you see the overall size of the pocket above. In the technology database, there are some rules set up so that when you have a rectangular pocket feature with a rough strategy finish and the size falls within a specified range, we will get a rough mill and a contour mill operation to machine the feature. When I click OK and generate an operation plan, you'll see a rough mill and a contour mill has been added to our operation tree. If you work with parts that have certain types of features that you machine on a regular basis, you may find yourself making the same adjustments to your operations over and over again. Rather than doing this over and over again, I'm going to show you how you can create feature conditions with operation parameter settings that are closer to what is needed for pockets of this size and shape, so you can significantly reduce or even eliminate the need to make these changes each time. In the lesson on pockets, I made some changes to my operations in order to machine this filleted pocket. By default, this had the strategy of rough finish, which resulted in a rough mill and a contour mill operation using flat end mills. If you recall, I adjusted both of these operations to use a hog nose tool instead. To create a new feature condition that automatically creates these operations with a hog nose tool, I'll open the technology database. Before I make any changes, I want to make sure I'm in the correct units in order for my new condition to take effect. The part is in inch units, so I will select inch units in the TechDB. This will be for a milling operation, so I'll expand the mill item in the tree or click on the mill button on the right side of the dialog. I want to create a condition for a rectangular pocket with fillets between the bottom and sides of the pocket. So I'll expand the Features and Options tree item or click on the Feature and Operations button. There are several options to choose from on this screen, some of which are beyond the scope of this course. As you get more familiar with the database and some of the functions in CAMWorks, you will find many of these options quite useful. For now, I'll click on User-Defined Strategies to create a name for the strategy that will be applied to our pocket. Here in this dialog box, I can specify what strategies will be available to select from for each type of feature. Since I will be creating a custom strategy for a rectangular pocket, I can select Rectangular Pocket from the drop-down list. Here you can see the types of strategies that are currently available to select from when a rectangular pocket feature is defined in a part. Remember that asterisks in Access indicate creating new records. To add my own strategy to the list, I'll click in this blank row here with the asterisk. I'll call this strategy Solid Professor, but use whatever name makes sense for the types of features you are setting up so that they can be easily identified later. Here I have the option to make this my default strategy for rectangular pockets, but since not all of my pockets will have radius between the bottom of the pocket and sides, I'll leave this option unchecked. To complete the record entry, I want to make sure there is a number for the ID and ID strategy here. Press the pencil button to activate the record and add the ID numbers. And then I'll click Close to continue. Next, I want to specify the operations that will be applied to pockets that have the Solid Professor strategy, so I'll click on the Features and Operations button. The Features and Operations dialog box breaks down like this. If you have a feature of a specific type that meets certain geometric and non-geometric criteria, then certain operations will be created. For example, if I have a hole feature that has a drill strategy specified and falls within this range of diameters and depths, then these will be the resulting operations. If I click on some of these other if conditions, then you see the resulting operations displayed for each. Since this is a rectangular pocket feature we're working with, I'll select Rectangular Pocket from the drop-down list. To create a new condition for a rectangular pocket with fillets on the bottom, I'll scroll down to the bottom of the list to the row with the asterisk. For each new condition, I need to set numerous if parameters. The first thing I need to do is specify the subtype of the feature. The subtype identifies whether the feature is blind, meaning it has a bottom, or if it is through, meaning there is no bottom. We know that this type of pocket is blind, so I click on the drop-down list that says Blind and select the option Blind. You'll see the asterisk move down to the next row, and a pencil appears in this row to indicate that we're writing a new record. The next condition parameter to set is called Strategy. The Strategy parameter is a non-geometric property of the feature. Since you can define an unlimited number of user-defined strategies, it is very flexible and can be used to differentiate most any similar geometrically comparable feature. For example, you may have two features which are geometrically similar or even identical, but for some reason you wish to machine one feature with one set of operations and parameters and the other feature with a different set. Perhaps one has a different surface finish than the other, or one is plated and the other isn't. The next condition parameter to set is the base attribute. The base attribute defines whether there is a fillet or chamfer between the bottom of the pocket and the sides. For our example, the difference between these two features is a bottom fillet. Here, I'll set the base strategy to bottom radius. Next, we will set the stock material group to all, meaning that this condition will apply to parts made from any material type. Based on the width of the pocket, we will set the box width range from 0 to 8 inches, and a range of feature depths from 0 to 2 inches. To complete this set of criteria, I'll click on the pencil to add the record, and you see an ID number is added. Next, I want to define the operations that will be applied to pocket features that meet the criteria I just specified. To do this, I need to make sure the criteria I specified is active. You may need to click on another record and then click back on the record to refresh it to make it active. When the feature meets this criteria, I first want to have a rough mill operation. When I click this button, I can set all of the operation parameters in this dialog box, but I'll show you another way to make these adjustments in just a moment. Next, I'll select the tool to be used for this operation. For the tool type, I'll use a hog-nosed end mill, and then select the specific tool by selecting the button here. This is a list of all the hog-nosed end mills that are currently defined in the database. I'll show you how you can add more tools to the database and set up specific tool cribs in another lesson. For this example, I'll use a tool with a radius of 100 thousandths, so I'll activate the record and say OK. And click Close to exit the tool selection dialog box. Finally, I want to specify the machining depth criteria for the operation. Instead of setting a constant depth, I'll use an expression so that the machining depth is always equal to the feature depth, and hit Close. Next, I'll go ahead and add a contour mill operation. I'll specify the tool to use, and give it a depth criteria with the expression feature depth. Now that we have our strategy and feature criteria set up, let's try it out on an actual part.